Neil, thanks for joining. You just, first of all, the long trip back. You finally back in South Africa, and it was quite a trying trip, but must be great to be back home.
Yeah, listen, it's always great to be back home, especially after a successful trip to the Commonwealth Games. So, yeah, yes, massively proud of the boys. I think amazing performance over 3 days where they pitch up for every single game from the first game to the last. I think maybe those first 2 games that we played, the one against Malaysia and Tonga, almost still trying to find our momentum and our flow. But I think from that Scotland game, that last pool game, the guys just made a massive step up, and you can almost feel that belief, not just on the field, but in the warm-ups that the guys have, and that they wanted to go all the way, and they did it at the end. So as a coaching staff and as a coach of the team, yeah, the efforts that the guys put in, especially in defense, was really amazing.
Just so you say that, I mean, and obviously the confidence was very apparent in the team, but then in the last couple of World Series tournaments, it almost felt like that confidence was just missing a little bit. What changed, and I mean, how did you guys fix that?
Yeah, I think it's all in the preparation. We talk about getting our confidence from preparation, but not just the preparation on the field, but the preparation for the opponents that we play against as well. So we knew that obviously Malaysia won't be that tough of an opinion. We knew that Tonga will bring a physical game, and if we can match that, we should be fine. And then Scotland was the team that we really focused on in that pool game. We did a proper analysis on them. We gave the guys a 47-page presentation on Scotland, who the kickers are, where they're kicking, who the contestants are, what they try to achieve from the set face plays, how we'll defend that. And I think that gave them confidence to go into that field against Scotland and to blow them off the park like they did. And I think that game actually gave them the confidence to then go out, beat Canada, beat Australia, and then beat Fiji in the final. So preparation is always key for us to get that confidence to go out on the field. So not just, like I said, the field preparation, but the preparation for the opponents that we play against as well. And I think that was the thing that was so frustrating for the last 4 World Series tournaments, that the guys didn't really reach their potential. And I spoke to Marius after the Commonwealth Games, and he said, yes, you're happy, you under a lot of stress the last few months. And I said, no, it wasn't stress, it was more frustration, because I know if this team can reach their potential, they can play like they played in the Commonwealth Games, but we didn't come close to that when we played in the World Series. So was almost more relieved that the guys now understand what we spoke about when we say that they haven't reached their potential, and this was really good. The guys really played well and really reached their potential in this Com game.
I think the one thing I thought, which you guys did well and you've done over the years, but maybe went away from that a little bit in the last couple of World Series tournaments, is you're the one team you're the team that kicks the most in the competition, but the tactical nature of the kicking, when to kick and how to kick, to use that speed that you've got on the outside, was exceptional in Birmingham. That's the one thing. I mean, even though they knew it was coming, you can't stop that. You can't turn around as quickly. Yeah, and that worked exceptionally well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more teams that now starts to defend with all 7 in the line, so they don't defend with sweepers anymore. So the only way we can get these sweepers back is to kicking behind them and to put pressure on them. So, and from our point of view, our tactical kicking is always, the outcome of that's always to get the ball back. So we don't want to give a ball away and then defend again. So we really want to kick tactically from an attacking point of view, so that we can regain ball position or then score tries. So, and I think Scotland was, again, that turning point for us. We analysed them properly. We saw the sweepers don't really go back from set phases. They stay in the line, and that obviously leaves you a lot of space in behind the defensive line to kicking behind and then to retain or then score tries. And so it's something that we will definitely look at going forward as well, because of the way the teams are defending with their sweepers in the line.
Well, I suppose, that's the big thing. And I just think for people outside who obviously don't follow sevens as closely and don't obviously analyze as closely, it's just, that's the big key, is that manipulating that space, because you've only got 7 on the field. So if they do drop the guy back, then there's space in other places as well. So
Yeah, 100%. We would love for them to get the sweepers back, so then we can play a natural attacking game again. But if they don't, then we got the tactical kicking to try and push that sweepers back. And I think it happened against Canada. So normally they defend with 7 in the line as well, and all of a sudden after that Scotland game, when we played Canada in the quarterfinal, they had a sweeper in place, so which then allowed us again to play our normal attacking game, and like you said, created spaces on the outside, or gave us spaces on the edges again.
And that final, I must admit, that must be close to one of the best performances that since you've been coaching. The fact that, you know, Fiji, we all know how dangerous they are, and they just didn't give them anything in that final. It was really good.
Yeah, I think it was again a great performance. I know everybody is saying that Fiji game was a good performance and a close to perfect performance, and it probably was. I haven't watched the game yet. I still need to go and watch the game again. I think when you win in the final, there's so much nervousness and stress around it that you don't really take in what happens onto the field. So I'll have a good look at the game again. But yeah, a really good performance. I think to put Fiji team away 31-7, you must pitch up for that game, and I think the guys did that, and especially in defense again. I think that's one thing that stood out for me over the 3 days and 6 games that we played, is our defensive efforts again. To only concede 4 tries in 6 games is a massive effort, and that was what we always stand for, is that defense team, the way you just keep teams out, and by actually defending while you create opportunities for you then to score tries as well, attacking opportunities. And I think that final was exactly that. We didn't give Fiji any chance to put points on the board. They scored that 1 try, but definitely a good performance from the boys. And I think the only other game that I can think of that we played that well was also against Fiji in Wellington, where we, I think, beat them 33-0 actually that day. So very similar to that performance in Wellington a good few years ago.
The one thing, I mean, especially after, I think anybody who watched that, and you obviously didn't watch the semi-final because you were busy. I think you just finished playing where you were about to come onto the field, 1-2. Yeah. But the way Fiji played in that semi-final, some of the tries they scored was, just it shows the sort of flair and stuff that they've got in their team against New Zealand. And I think after watching that, it's quite easy to think it would have been a much tougher final for you guys. But it was amazing the way the guys played. So, I mean, that's great. I mean, how does it feel now? Another gold medal? I think 2014 was the last one, if I'm right.
Yeah. Yes, Brendan. I think a lot of similarities in how we won that gold medal in 2014 in Glasgow and in this one. And I think both these tournaments, nobody actually gave us a chance. So in that 2014 tournament, New Zealand was the overwhelming favourites to win that gold. They were the only team that won a Commonwealth Games gold at that stage. So and nobody gave us a chance. And what was interesting with that final against New Zealand in Glasgow is how they almost looked at our warm-up, because we warming up next to each other on the warm-up pitches, and how they were more interested in our warm-up than their own warm-up in that final in Glasgow. And it happened in all the knockout games in this tournament as well. When we played Canada, they were more interested in our warm-up. When we played Australia, they were more interested in our warm-up. The coaching staff now, they were looking at what we're doing at the warm-up. And then Fiji, exactly the same thing. And normally when the opposition teams are more interested in our warm-ups than their warm-ups, then I know they're nervous and they feel like, yes, they're in trouble. So, and that gives us confidence again, knowing that they are nervous about that game. So, again, I think because of our performances over the last 4 tournaments, nobody really gave us a chance to win this Commonwealth Games. But amazing how this guys, firstly worked hard in the pre-camp before the Commonwealth Games, and how they came together and they chased the goal of winning that gold. So it was massive efforts and amazing performance by the boys, very clinical, especially in attack.
You don't really have much time off. You off to America in a couple of weeks' time again for that last very strangely placed final tournament. It feels very out of place in the calendar, but the LA is going to be a huge one for you guys, to try and win the World Series as well.
Again, I think we said to each other before we started with the camp in Com Games that the 2.5 week camp before the Commonwealth Games is basically the camp for LA and for the World Cup as well, because you won't really have enough time in between those tournaments to change things or to do things differently. So you can almost just manage what you've done already, but there's no time to do new things. So we probably will give the guys off till Wednesday. So it's about a 4 or 5 day break that they will be having. Then we'll get back together for a 1.5 week camp, and then it's off to LA. And it's interesting how it works out, because I think we're only 2 points ahead of Australia, but they will take your best 7 tournaments for the season. And if we get past 10 points, then 10 points is our next best tournament. But for Australia, it's 13 points. So for them to actually make more points on the World Series, they need to get a better position than 13 points on that in that last tournament against LA, but we only need to get better than 10 points. So it's an interesting dynamic. So it's not a clear-cut thing. So Australia might still end up higher than us on in that tournament, but still not win the World Series. So it's an interesting dynamic. So we try to work out the maths already, what we need to do. But it's going to be tough. We're in a tough pool. We play America first, then we have Canada, and then New Zealand in our final game. But I think our whole mindset going into that tournament is it's the ideal preparation for the World Cup, seeing that the World Cup is a straight knockout. So we'll approach it like that. We'll hope to get through our pool well, firstly, make it into the knockout stages, and then hopefully do well enough to secure that World Series title as well.
It's an interesting, as you say. I mean, there's so many calculations that you're going to probably have during the tournament have to do to know where you need to be. But I mean, the basic thing doesn't change. You need to win, especially in the pool. You need to win, otherwise you don't make it out of the pool. But just where does that fit? I mean, it's obviously preparation for the World Cup, but I know you're well enough to know that you're also not a guy who wants to give up the World Series for the World Cup. Or, I mean, you'd want to win everything, as any coach would.
Yeah. We were actually hoping that we would have won the World Series already, and then almost can manage some of the players leading into the World Cup. But I think, again, for us, and we've seen it in the past, is we need momentum and flow. And I think this LA tournament will give us that momentum and flow. We've already started to get a bit of momentum with the Com Games, and I think if we can inject that momentum and flow into LA, and then hopefully to the World Cup, we should be okay, I think. But I think if you now manage some of the players and you don't take them to LA, you almost break that momentum and flow. So we were almost forced now, because we didn't do well in the last tournament in London. We were almost forced now to select our best team to go to LA and to hopefully then win the World Series there. But I think, again, in hindsight, I think probably the right thing to do is just to keep that momentum and keep the guys playing. You almost can pull back a little bit on the training, but just make sure that they play, because that in fact, this is actually your best preparation for a tournament like the World Cup is game time.
But I mean, the same goes well as that, as you say, that everyone was watching your warm-ups, and so the teams are going to be studying what you did for the Commonwealth Games. So that challenge is going to be a bit more difficult, because the teams will come a lot more prepared for what you bring. So how do you guys handle that? I mean, it's not necessarily bringing new things in, but it's just doing the same things better.
Yeah, it's interesting, and somebody said it the other day, like sevens is like human chess. So you will show your moves in this tournament, and then obviously when you play that team again, they will come back with their own new plan or counter moves to try and counter you. So again, you need to try and get into their heads and see how they think they're going to defend you or attack against you because of the way you played the last tournament. So it is tactical. It is interesting. But I think what might happen, because we played the way we played in Com Games, we almost get an opportunity to see how they will attack that or counter that in LA, then to hopefully be able to make new plans in the World Cup. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes, but I think it will at least give us opportunities to see how the guys will play against us in LA before we get to the World Cup then.
And then obviously the big elephant in the room, the World Cup that's looming over us in it's about a month's time. And it's also your swan song, your final tournament. I mean, have you given much thought about how emotional that's going to be, and how, I suppose, how you've got to manage that given your time with the team and it's coming to an end?
Yeah, listen, it's becoming tough now already. I think even with the Com Games, there was times where there was a lot of emotions. Knowing that this is it. This is the end of your sevens coaching career. And again, I think I said it to the guys a few months ago as well. I just want them to enjoy these last two tournaments. I don't want them to feel pressure. I really want them to really have smiles on their faces and enjoy, but almost like a purposeful enjoyment. I don't know if there's something like that, but a meaningful enjoyment where it's not just smiles on the faces, but there's no focus, there's no outcome, but like an enjoyment where when they smash somebody, or when they've done well in defense and they prevented somebody from scoring a try, or they attacked well and we put Fiji away by 31-7. That's the purposeful enjoyment that we want them to have. And it comes obviously with a lot of hard work as well. And the guys really worked hard in the 2.5 weeks before the Commonwealth Games. They put a lot of effort in, and at times I think they were a little bit frustrated with the management and couldn't understand why we pushed them this hard. And so I'm really happy for them that they've got a reward for all the hard work they put in before that Com Games. So it's going to be emotional. It's going to be really tough for me as a coach, and I think for the players' sake, I need to control my emotions as well at stages. But yeah, it's an amazing system. Obviously, a difficult decision to walk away from it, but I think it would have happened at some stage. So I needed to make a decision. I think the opportunity is a great opportunity that I couldn't say no for, to move over to the 15s and to the Sharks Rugby Union. But it doesn't make it easy because of the people that's in the system and what the system is all about. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough at the last few days at the World Cup.
I was going to say, because I understand the opportunity at the Sharks, and I mean, we're probably still going to talk a lot when you're in that role as well, in a different capacity. But normally a Cape Town Sevens brings its own pressure because of the expectation of the local fans. A World Cup brings a different type of pressure, especially because of our history in the World Cup as well, that something seems to trip us up every single time, and then plus the fact that your last tournament, there's going to be a whole lot of different types of pressure to handle in the World Cup.
Yeah, I think there will be. And again, I think if we can get the players in the state of mind they were for the Commonwealth Games, I think we will hopefully will be successful then. I think the guys were really, really good in their preparation to each and every game in the Commonwealth Games. And yes, obviously there were pressure as well. I think always when we go to these once-off tournaments and multi-sport tournaments like Com Games or Olympics, there's always also a little bit of extra almost pressure because of the fact that you participate as Team Saskok and they want medals. So hopefully we can get ourselves in the same state of mind as the Com Games. The guys were really good, to be honest. They did everything they could to prepare them for the games, the activation they did before the session. So that whole flow was really great, building up into the games, and now they performed in those games. So yeah, there will be pressure. Hopefully we can turn that pressure around to motivation, and hopefully we can go out to the field and make South Africa proud of what the team has done, not just for that World Cup, but for the last 9 years that I was part of the Springbok Sevens team.
Well, I was going to say, I think you've got to this point now where you say, you need momentum and things like that. So I'm not expecting, barring injury, any changes to that team. I think you've also learned your lessons with 15 players and bringing them in. And I think the team at the moment where they're sitting right now, I can't see too many changes going into the World Cup.
Yeah, well, obviously a guy like Impi Visser and Ryan Oosthuizen was injured and wasn't available for Com Games. So we'll probably give them opportunity in LA to see how they go. And then we might have one or two injuries that will obviously force that replacements upon us and a change in the team. But yeah, I think overall we're happy with the team. Hopefully we can get them healthy all the way through to the World Cup. We obviously still got LA, and we hope we won't pick up injuries, any more injuries in that LA tournament, but it's a contact sport. So we expect that we'll have one or two injuries coming from LA as well. Yeah, so I think there's still one or two guys that we would like to test in LA, or to give them opportunity to put their hand up for the World Cup. And strangely enough, you can only select 12 players for the World Cup, where with the World Series and Commonwealth Games, we could have selected 13 players. So, which will obviously make that task for me as a coach even more difficult, to only select 12 and not 13. So it's always tough conversations that needs to be had with players, whether they're in the team or not, and the reason for it.
Well, sorry, last question. Just we're basically done, but it was just interesting to me the because LA is 2 weeks or 2 or 3 2 weeks before the World Cup. Yeah, it's 2 weeks. Yeah, sorry, I was just going to work it out.
Yeah,
because it's 2 weeks before the World Cup, it's quite difficult for a lot of the sides. Not talking about the sides who've got pro teams are fine, because I'm sure they've planned for it. But and you guys just come back home, obviously, because you'd rather prepare at home anyway. But for some of the teams, they're going halfway across the world back to Samoa, or wherever they're coming from, and then coming down to South Africa. That's going to place a bit of an extra pressure on them anyway. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that. Because I take it World Rugby only pays for a certain period anyway, that you stay ahead of the World Cup anyway. So they can't come straight from LA, unless they pay for themselves, probably.
Well, interesting enough, Brendan, I think because of that LA tournament that's going to be 2 weeks just before the World Cup, I think most of the teams are going to go straight from LA to South Africa, then to almost arrive here that Wednesday, Thursday, the week before the World Cup, or like 10 days before the World Cup. So, and I think World Rugby actually assists them in the accommodation and everything, because of the timelines that's there. So for New Zealand to go to LA, back to New Zealand, and then to South Africa 2 or 3 days later, it just doesn't make sense. I think a team like Samoa is again back to Dubai, so they didn't go back to Samoa. They have their base in Dubai. It's now between Commonwealth Games in LA. So they will probably again maybe go back to Dubai, spend 2 or 3 days there, and then come down to South Africa, or then just come straight down to South Africa. So I think World Rugby is assisting all the teams in terms of their accommodation and meals and everything here in South Africa, so that they go from LA straight to South Africa and then be here 10 days before that World Cup. So, and I think for us, originally we planned to actually not take our World Cup squad to LA because of the travel stress that you'll have coming back, and then you only have 10 days, then you almost have to play the World Cup. So we know coming back from America, it takes you almost a week to recover from the flights and everything, because you will have to go through London to get back to South Africa. So you go from America, London, Cape Town, and that layover in London is normally a 4 to 6 hour layover as well. So it takes you quite a while to get back to South Africa. So we managed to get a better flight to get us back Tuesday night in South Africa rather than Wednesday morning. And I think that one extra sleep in your own bed will also assist in the recovery process. So from a recovery perspective, we really tried everything to get ourselves the best chance to be recovered and ready for that World Cup. So, but I think most of the teams will probably arrive on that Wednesday as well, flying back from LA to arrive back in South Africa that Wednesday, 10 days before the World Cup.
I suppose the only good thing is that everybody's going to do it. It's not like you doing it alone. So all the teams have to do that.